What do you do when your sister-in-law do this to her kids? I was 28 when the doorbell rang at 2 a.m. in the middle of March. My husband, Thomas, had left 2 weeks earlier for a year-long job in Europe. I was dead asleep and definitely not expecting anyone. But standing there on the porch, in the freezing dark, was my sister-in-law Janet, hair a mess, face pale, with her 3 kids, Hunter, 10, Annie, 7, and Grace, 4. Each kid was clutching a trash bag full of clothes. Janet didn't explain anything. She just shoved a crumpled envelope into my hand and said, "They're yours now. I need a break." Then she turned around, got in a waiting Uber, and disappeared. Inside the envelope were janky guardianship forms she'd printed from the internet. No notary, no signatures, nothing legal. I was stunned. I managed to call the police, but they said it wasn't considered abandonment since the kids were left with a family member. They told me to call CPS in the morning. CPS didn't mess around. A caseworker named Scott came over the same day. He walked me through emergency kinship care paperwork, which would give me temporary authority and a little financial help. That night, I let all 3 kids pile into my bed while I took the couch. None of them really slept. Hunter just stared at the front door. Annie cried in her sleep. Grace wet the bed. Within a week, I got them into school. It was chaos. Grace had been showing up unwashed. Annie was stealing food from other kids. Hunter hadn't turned in a single assignment all year. I updated Thomas in nightly video calls. He was horrified but stuck overseas. He couldn't leave without huge penalties. We agreed he'd stay. By the 3rd month, I was wrecked. Financially, emotionally, physically. I worked nights while the kids slept and barely got 4 hours of rest myself. CPS helped with licensed childcare eventually, which made things bearable. I tracked down Janet's ex, Damon, and he told me she ran off to Vegas with some 19-year-old. Said the kids were holding her back. After 6 months of radio silence from Janet, I filed for permanent custody. I found a pro bono attorney who helped me through the whole thing. Janet skipped 3 court hearings. 9 months in, the judge granted me full legal custody. That night, Grace looked at a picture of Janet and said, "That's not my mommy. You are. I just lost it." That's when I knew. I wasn't just a guardian anymore. I was their mom. Meanwhile, Thomas and I started to drift. His trip kept getting extended, and eventually our calls dropped to once a month. Then Janet popped back up like a horror movie sequel, drunk, screaming at the kids' school, saying I'd stolen her babies. She was arrested, and I got a restraining order. That same night, she tried to break into our apartment. Hunter stood in front of the door with a baseball bat while I called 911. Janet was arrested again, but released the next morning. I tried calling Thomas. No answer. Days later, he finally called back, distracted, cold, and then things really went off the rails. Janet filed to overturn my custody, claiming she'd changed. The court ordered a supervised visit. It lasted 5 minutes before the kids had panic attacks. They couldn't even be in the same room with her. Then Janet made a CPS report accusing me of abuse. Scott and another worker investigated. They cleared me, but the damage was done. The kids were terrified again. A week later, she cornered me in a grocery store parking lot. She looked sober and pregnant. She smiled and said, "It's Thomas's. I thought you should know." I froze. She showed me texts between her and Thomas. Turns out they'd been talking the whole time. He'd been sending her money, meeting her during business trips. I nearly collapsed. I went home and sat in the shower until the water ran cold. Then I texted Thomas. "Janet says she's pregnant with your baby. Call me." At 3 a.m. he did. He was quiet, then finally admitted it. He said it started before he left. She needed help, so he gave her money. Then they met up. Just one time, he claimed, but it snowballed. When I asked if the Europe thing was even real, he admitted he'd extended the trip to avoid facing me. I hung up. Next morning, Hunter came into the kitchen. "Is she trying to take us again?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "She's not. You're mine now." Click the full story to see what happened next.